I think that's why I'm still alive today. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And I mean,
but Bill, the air is less polluted, the water is less polluted. As countries get richer, they pollute less. When they're industrializing, they pollute more. There might be individual environmental toxins, yes, but as a broad description of the status of OECD countries, we are polluting on net less.
It depends on where you live, first of all.
Yeah. That's right.
Out here in California, I believe I'm breathing in the fire.
Have you noticed how in today's world, things that used to be common sense have somehow become controversial? You say something so obvious that your grandmother, your farmer neighbor, and even a 5-year-old would understand, and suddenly you're the bad guy. That's exactly what happened on Bill Maher's show when the panel tackled one of the most basic questions humanity has ever faced. What is a woman? And this wasn't just some casual debate. The UK's Supreme Court had to make a ruling so obvious it's almost embarrassing that it even needed to be debated. They basically said, yes, a woman is defined by biological sex. Translation? J.K. Rowling was right all along. Imagine that after years of being smeared, bullied, and called every name in the book, the highest legal minds in Britain confirmed what every human society has known since the beginning of time. But here's the kicker: while the UK is finally catching up to reality, America's brightest legal minds are still stumbling over this question. We've got lawmakers and activists acting like it's some cosmic puzzle nobody can solve. Really? Humanity has been around for thousands of years and we suddenly forgot how to define half the population? Give me—
This week in England, the Supreme Court, their definition of woman is biological sex. To put it in shorthand, J.K. Rowling won.
Yes. J.K. Rowling won. Everyone who said this for years has won. All the, particularly women who've been defamed and lied about and bullied and chased and much more for years, they were right. And I just think, apart from being a statement of the obvious, isn't it amazing that the best legal minds in Britain spent years having to work out the first thing we knew as a species?
And that's the thing, this isn't about clarity, it's about confusion. The people pushing this gender ideology circus don't actually want answers, they want chaos. They want a world where biology is negotiable, truth is optional, and reality bends to whatever hashtag happens to be trending this week. Now, don't get me wrong, nobody is saying transgender people don't exist or that gender dysphoria isn't real. That's not the argument. The point is that there's a difference between acknowledging reality and erasing it. A man is a man and a woman is a woman. Full stop. You can identify however you want and live however you want, but biology doesn't get rewritten just because someone feels a certain way. Feelings don't override chromosomes, that's just science. But of course, the conversation didn't stop there. Things really heated up when the topic shifted to kids, and this is where it gets truly alarming. Shockingly, America is leading the charge in letting children make life-altering decisions about gender. Under Biden's policies, kids who can't even legally buy a beer are being encouraged to self-diagnose and decide if they want hormone blockers or even surgery. Think about that for a second. The same kid who still believes in Santa Claus is suddenly considered wise enough to choose permanent medical procedures. That's not compassion, that's insanity.
But just to be clear, we're not saying there's not such a thing as trans, right? We're not saying there's not such a thing as someone who is quote-unquote born in the wrong body.
I don't think people get born in the wrong body now.
Oh, I do.
I do.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a default setting for humans.
Yeah.
Like, we should acknowledge that. It's not just every time there's a baby, ooh, who knows what it is. That's crazy. But there are...
Beyond me, yeah.
But there are variations.
There are variations.
Homosexuality.
That's right. It's a continuum.
And then, you know, but it's how we handle that.
That's
you know?
right.
I mean, and I think we would agree that, you know, children, and this is where America is now an outlier country. We're the only country that went full, and I guess Trump is reversing it, but certainly under Biden, who went fully toward that. Like, we don't care what age, kids can self-diagnose themselves. I mean, that to me was...
And the Democrats don't just support this in some cases. They've actually tried to criminalize parents who dare to step in and say, no, you're not doing this to my child. Just think about that for a moment, to government threatening parents for protecting their kids. And when Tina Smith tried to defend this nonsense on Maher's show, she flat out lied. She painted the Democratic Party as some neutral, hands-off group that totally respects parental rights. Yeah, right. We all know the record. We've seen the bills and the policies, so don't gaslight us. To Maher's credit, he wasn't buying it, and you could feel the temperature in the room rise. Mar called out the hypocrisy and pointed out exactly what so many Americans are already thinking, that this agenda has gone way too far and is alienating normal voters who just want sanity restored.
Comes back to the sensible center.
Yep. I mean, to me, the sensible center is that, like, you respect people, you trust parents, you let parents figure out what to do with their kids, and you don't need a bunch of politicians in Washington making decisions about
That is not the Democratic position, at least here in California.
Well, that's my position.
I'm good. I think that's where the Democratic Party should. That is not the position that we've had here in California, which is like, don't tell the parents what the kids are doing at school. That's and that you really.
And speaking of alienating voters, Mar dropped another bombshell later in the conversation when he turned the spotlight on the Democratic obsession with identity politics. You know the drill: race, gender, sexuality, slice and dice the population into neat little boxes, then pander to each group like they're checking items off a political shopping list. Sure, that strategy worked for a while. Barack Obama rode it straight into the White House, but guess what? That playbook is outdated. America has changed. We're not living in 2008 anymore. Interracial marriages are at an all-time high, multiracial identity is growing fast, and regular voters are tired of being reduced to skin color or pronouns. They don't want to be treated like demographics. They want to be treated like individuals. But Democrats are still playing the same tired tune, and it's costing them big time. Mar, who's no conservative by the way, made it brutally clear that this strategy isn't just lazy, it's political suicide. The more the DNC leans into racial pandering and identity politics, the more they push voters away. People want solutions, not slogans. They want leaders, not lectures. And if Democrats don't adapt, irrelevance is waiting right around the corner.
Do you like identity politics? This kind of thing is antiquated. From 2010 to 2020, the number of people identifying as multiracial in America went up 276%. 1 in 5 newlyweds now are in an interracial marriage, and that number goes up to 100% in ads for Subaru. You couldn't do a remake of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner today because almost 100% of Americans approve of interracial marriage, especially with rich in-laws.
But here's where it got even juicier. The topic shifted to our FK Jr. and whatever you think about him. One thing is undeniable. The guy has been hammered relentlessly by the left for daring to step out of line. The moment he questioned mainstream narratives, boom, he was branded a kook, a conspiracy theorist, a lunatic. Mar called it out perfectly, saying, "The problem isn't that our FK Jr. might be wrong about some things. The problem is that he dared to be independent. The left doesn't punish you for being wrong. They punish you for not parroting their talking points. That's the real sin independence." And it's not just our FK Jr. Look at Trump. Look at J.D. Vance. Look at anyone who dares to step even an inch outside the approved narrative the smear machine kicks in at full blast. They don't debate you, they destroy you. That's the playbook, and Americans are getting sick of it.
He did speak on it this week, and I did not agree with the point of view of the article I was reading, which was that he's completely crazy because he was saying it's not mostly genetic, it's mostly environmental toxins. I happen to believe that's probably a more likely answer. And they were saying, well, no, genetics. And of course genetics is involved in everything health-wise. But to present the argument I saw framed in that way, that he's a kook because he thinks it's coming. I mean, environmental toxins is really the story of my lifetime. I'm glad I was born as old as I am at a time when everything wasn't completely polluted.
Now, let's circle back to one of the more heated exchanges: pollution. One of Maher's guests tried to argue that richer countries like the US are actually polluting less, pointing to cleaner tech, cleaner air, and cleaner water. Sounds great on paper, right? But Mar wasn't buying it. He fired back with brutal honesty, saying he's out in California breathing fire literally. Wildfires raging, plastic pollution everywhere, microplastics even showing up in our bodies. This is the so-called cleaner future we're bragging about? Please.
That's why I'm still alive today. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And I mean, but
Bill, the air is less polluted, the water is less polluted. As countries get richer, they pollute less. When they're industrializing, they pollute more. There might be individual environmental toxins, yes, but as a broad description of the status of OECD countries, we are polluting on net less.
It depends on where you live, first of all.
Yeah.
That's right.
Out here in California, I believe I'm breathing in the fire still.
And he's right. Sure, rich countries love to pat themselves on the back for their shiny solar panels and fleets of Teslas, but let's not ignore the bigger picture. These same countries are flooding the planet with plastics, shipping their waste off to poorer nations, and consuming resources at record-breaking levels. Cleaner tech might make for a nice headline, but it doesn't erase the mountains of garbage floating in our oceans or the toxins seeping into our food supply. Mark called it out for what it is: a convenient myth. A talking point that lets elites feel good about themselves while ignoring the very real damage being done on a global scale.
The fire burned a lot of this city, and a lot of this city had plastic in their home. And we were already getting, they say, a credit card's worth of plastic in our body on a weekly basis. So I don't know what you're talking about, like it's better than it used to be.
I'm talking about I can see the mountains from Long Beach, which I couldn't growing up. I mean, we pass rules, we do cleaner tech over time, and all rich countries do this. It is a process. It's a whole theory of the case called the Kuznets curve. It's a thing. It's worth reflecting on. And
then came the knockout punch identity politics again, but this time with a California twist. Did you know California now has not just Amber Alerts for missing kids, but ebony alerts for black children and feather alerts for Native American children? Apparently, skin color now determines how we look for missing kids. That's not progress, that's segregation with a woke coat of paint. Maher tore it apart, saying this is ridiculous and voters see right through it. And the numbers back him up. Multiracial identities are skyrocketing. Interracial marriages are now the norm, and America is becoming more diverse than ever. But instead of embracing that reality, Democrats are doubling down on old-school pandering, and it's backfiring.
Who wins the next election? And outdated racial pandering is one reason Democrats lose elections. When Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi put on kente cloth, I don't think it earned them one vote for their powerful emotional ties to Ghana. Here in California, we're now segregating kidnapping. Really. California doesn't just have Amber Alerts for missing children. We have ebony alerts for black children and feather alerts for Native American kids. What is that? We look for them by listening on the...
And honestly, he's right. People don't want to be divided anymore. They don't want leaders lecturing them about privilege charts and oppression Olympics. They want leaders who see them as human beings, period. When you put it all together, gender ideology, environmental hypocrisy, identity politics, you see a clear pattern. The Democratic Party is clinging to strategies that might have worked a decade ago, but today are completely self-destructive. They alienate normal people, insult voters' intelligence, and are driving the party straight toward irrelevance. Now, I'm not saying Bill Maher has all the answers, but in this episode, he nailed it. He exposed the lies, shredded the talking points, and reminded everyone that common sense, real, old-fashioned common sense is still alive, even if it's on life support. And that's why this conversation matters. Because if Democrats don't adapt, they're not just going to lose elections, they're going to lose their relevance entirely. And in politics, irrelevance isn't just embarrassing, it's the kiss of death. So let me throw it to you. Do you agree with Maher here? Is the left committing political suicide with identity politics and gender ideology? Or can they turn it around before it's too late? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read them all and want to hear where you stand. And hey, if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss future videos. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Because here's the truth, folks, common sense isn't dead, it's just under attack. And the more we call it out, the stronger it gets.